Welcome to the Similar Pages podcast, a Polyverse Publications production. Today's episode features Rebecca Davis, an author, illustrator, stone carver, and basket weaver. Today's episode, Baskets with Rebecca Davis. So, Rebecca, we understand that you enjoy making traditional baskets. How did you discover the art of basketry?
Oh, yeah. As I showed you, I have made boxes. They're wooden.
Yeah.
And it was years ago that I made the boxes. And I started with feeling very inadequate with knowing how to work with wood. But I was challenged by it. And I felt that would be something that would just enrich me, to understand wood and how to make things with it. And so after I finished doing the boxes over a period of about a year and a half, I had some leftover wood from that project. And so I went by the store one time out in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere. And I went in and it was like a Native American outpost, trading post. And I went over to the counter and it was dusty and it looked like it had been there forever. The whole place was really antique. And I picked up this tiny basket that was only this big, about an inch tall. And it was detailed of a small basket with a lid on it, and it was made out of one porcupine quill. And when I picked it up, oh my gosh, I felt like I was holding a part of the world. It just compressed everything into that small and powerful image of a natural material transformed into a utilitarian but very tiny object, so it really focused me and drew me in. I said, I really want to learn how to do this. And so a couple of years after that, I was able to, I just kept looking for an opportunity, and I ended up taking a seminar, a weekend workshopped with a woman named Julia, she's Native American, and she had worked for Yosemite for years, 30 years, as an interpreter in the museum. And she would give weaving lessons, but she gave a whole weekend of this workshop, and her daughters, because she's 85 at this point, and her daughters helped her out with it. And the one thing that she did for me, which was really important, was she said, basically use the materials that are in your environment. Don't go out and order things and get things that you're not connected to, or your environment that you're living in is not connected to. And so just yesterday, I went out and harvested long needle pine needles from a place that I found a perfect tree for harvesting from. And so I didn't want to make Thule baskets, which is what she made, because she lives in the Central Valley. I'm making pine needle baskets from pine needles that I have right here. And so, that's basically it. I was captivated by that small basket. I really wanted to learn how to make it. I met this incredible woman who was teaching this class, and just got really grounded in how I was going to proceed forward with it. And then, of course, we ended up a few years ago having a pandemic. And so I had very little contact with other people. And I had done some baskets for a couple of years and given to everyone I knew, as far as family and friends, I had given them a basket. And so I knew how to do it. But there was one little issue about making baskets, and that's how you start them. And I finally came to the realization that if I put a small piece of wood in the bottom, that I could lash everything to it, and it would structurally make this very fragile material, pine needles, more stable. And then I would be able to build from that, because when you're working with something as thin and fragile as a dried pine needle, these pine needles have been dyed. And so they're actually the normal, the regular pine needles. Like these pine needles in this basket are not dyed down here. They're just dried. And then this is a dyed pine needle. But
Wow.
once I figured out how to really stabilize this very delicate material, I was able to make all kinds of different shapes and colors. And the whole process takes months and months and months. It's like collecting the pine needles, drying them for 5 to 8 months so they're completely dry, then dyeing them and drying them again, and then sorting, and then you get to make the basket. So
Right.
that's my, I love lots of process. So this has been a labor of joy. And during the pandemic, I had a lot of time to do all of this. So I made hundreds of baskets. And at this point, I have a gallery that's showing my baskets, and they're doing really great. People really like them. And so that's how I did the basket, ended up in basket weaving. I just fell in love with that little basket. And it's the same way I felt about the boxes. And what I know about myself is that fine art is a very focused and long-term commitment to materials and construction, and baskets and boxes. They are something that people can use and they can pick up, and it can be a part of their lives. Whereas sometimes sculpture is too distant to a lot of people, and they
I
don't really
see.
feel like they can engage with it the way that immediately people pick up these baskets and they want to have one.
Yeah.
They can think of someone that would really love to have one. So I think a lot of my baskets are bought by people that want to give them to someone else, because they get, they think of them as special gifts, which makes me pretty happy. Really.
Interactive,
Yes.
they'll be interacting with them, and it gives you joy on the aesthetic sense, but
Mhm.
also joy from the utility of having somewhere to maybe put your sunglasses or
Mhm.
knickknacks.
Yeah, it's worked out really well. It allowed me to just continue to explore different shapes and different colors and combinations, different weaves. Like this weave is very structured on the outside, and this weave right here has a kind of like dappling effect. And so
Yeah.
if you looked at this basket, it's got this structure on the inside and the dappling on the outside. So you can choose to have either. You can be organized and traditional on the outside, and on the inside have a more spontaneous or unpredictable patterning that is found on that one. This particular series that I'm working on right now has a banded color and a light color, like a beautiful blonde base to it. And then the very bottom is that red that comes from the top to the bottom. And so when you look
Oh,
inside,
yeah.
you see the bottom color relates to the top color.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
So I'm doing the same thing with this one. I'm trying different shapes.
Yeah, a little an oval shape on that
Yeah, an
one.
oval shape. And then the one I'm weaving right now, I'm in the very beginning. Well, I'm halfway done with it. And this can just sort of give you an idea of how I do it. I have this started with the dark smiling bottom. And then on the outside, it's patterned, and this is a very strict pattern. And this is a more spontaneous pattern.
Oh, wow. Fascinating to see that as you're working on it.
Uh-huh.
And the oval shape on the bottom, that sort of a bean shape,
Yes.
reminds me of your stonework with the
Uh-huh.
with the seeds and the
Yes.
sprouts.
You got it.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm putting beans in the bottom of a lot of them. And I'm really, I really like the beans. I wonder if I've got one here that I can show you. But I also, I don't know, maybe I do.
It's so great, Rebecca, how you said that you are an eco artist.
Yeah.
That definition that you say that you are an eco artist is so important right now. I know that we've spent a lot of time together working on the books, and you've shown me your art, and I'm always impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I know that you teach art, you teach artists, you inspire students. In fact, I've run across people that you've taught, and they say, oh yeah, you taught me in this class, and we remember you, and they always seem to light up, and I think that's wonderful. So I've seen firsthand how you inspire people. besides what we already spoke about with hiking and learning new forms of art, what else drives you? What else inspires you?
Well, I'm always inspired to see higher mountains and walk on emptier trails and uh, explore desert byways that are very deserted. I love the empty wall spaces of the country. I love the West. The western part of the United States is my home, and I travel to it. I camp in it as much as I can. And the rest of the time, I live in Carpinteria and enjoy this beautiful seaside place, and go in the ocean and swim in the pool and hike the trails here. And my life is pretty much focused on my creativity. Anything that I can get my hands on to use as a material, I'm always opening up and reading about. And what I've found for me that really inspires me is to go to another place on the planet that has a wild space and pick up a rock or look at a tree or hike down to a small lake in the middle of the mountains. And there I get most of my inspiration.
Oh, that's wonderful. Rebecca, is there an overall goal for your baskets?
Everything, I don't want to make things that people will not totally embrace, and use. Like the littlest of baskets, they'll put this by their bed and they'll put
Yeah.
their earrings in there that night, and they'll always know where their earrings are, and they'll pick them up, and they'll always be touching this and enjoying it. And with my art, I'm making things that have a very strong relationship to things that are growing and alive and want to live, and have a positive force in the world. That's the kind of work that I want to do.
So, Rebecca, I've heard that we can find your art at the Ova Gallery in Ojai.
Yeah, I'm really happy there. Great group of people. A lot of people get to see the baskets. Ojai is very known for its art scene there, which is great for me.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, for joining us today on the Similar Pages podcast. We hope to see you again soon.
Great. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
That was author, illustrator, sculptor, and basket weaver Rebecca Davis, whose work has been featured in Santa Barbara and is currently featured at the Ova Art Gallery in Ojai.